everybody. What's going on, everybody? This is your boy, Daniel J. I am your favorite prevention training specialist over at Swab and Chill here at APLA Health. I want to say thank you to our sponsors, APLA Health and Pyro Media Network, coming together to bring us this wonderful, wonderful show. And of course, big shout out to the CDC for their funding efforts to make sure that all of the bills get paid. But I want to shout out to my very wonderful co-host, honey. Shout out to Nigel. Nigel, how are you today?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing great. I'm your prevention training specialist for Project Impact. Happy to be here for another discussion.
Come on with this flag background and giving it life. Carlos, what's happening, boo? What's going on with you?
Hi, everybody. I don't know if you guys could hear me. I'm Carlos. I'm here representing from the Long Beach APLA Long Beach Center.
Yes. Well, as you can see, I put on a lipstick, so this show is going to be amazing because I got cute. That's what's happening. We are going to be discussing today the popularization of drugs. Honey, we as we know, in the party scene, things happen, but I feel like in recent years, substance use has been really on the rise. Not only in party scenes, but just recreationally. People have been very public about the drugs that they have been trying. And so we're going to get into that a little later. But right now, it's time for my favorite segment of our show. What's happening? Let's get into it. Let's talk about what's happening in the world. So the first thing that I want to discuss is I saw a coworker by the name of Nigel, who's amazing, sent me this article about the LA City Council has voted basically to ban homelessness, to make homelessness essentially illegal. And so it was a vote of, I believe, 13 to 15. 13 people said yes, 15 people said no.
Two.
Or two,
out of 15. So 2 council members actually voted against it, but the other 13 agreed that to pass.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That we needed to pass it. And the way that the ordination is written is basically that no one can camp out in front of any public park, any public space. And they went through a list of places that it's like, well, where are homeless people going to go? Now, the argument obviously is that this is going to push for a housing initiative and that we're going to build housing and then create housing for those that are homeless and in need. But the question obviously is, if they're not built yet, where do these homeless people go? And also, just to kind of put it out there, who's to say that some people who are homeless don't want to be homeless? I have spoken to several homeless people when I was working in homeless shelters. I've spoken to a lot of homeless people who say, I don't want to have my own place. Like, I get to go where I want to go. I don't have no bills. I don't have no responsibility. Like, this is my life. I choose it. It's fine for me. And of course, even though the council has voted yes on this particular ordination, we still have yet to hear
from the mayor. Sadly, the mayor.
To see if he's going to even sign this into law. So, Nigel, what are your thoughts on just this whole ordeal?
I mean, it's really heartbreaking, but it's like something that they always kind of push every couple of years. But I was seeing that based on like actual legal precedent, even if it is passed by Garcetti, there's a certain like stipulation in like the higher federal courts, basically saying that you can pass like those laws that kind of outlaw homelessness only if you can actively house every homeless individual in the area. So for the city of LA, for example, there's about 40,000 people homeless at any given day or night. So basically, for them to be able to pass that, they would have to have housing for 40,000 people. That means 40,000 beds somewhere in the city, which I, at the moment, don't think we currently have. So,
we don't have that.
Yeah. So I'm optimistic, hopefully, that they'll be able to, if Garcetti, is sensible for once in his entire career, then, he'll veto it. But,
Someone doesn't like our mayor.
No. I do not.
Carlos, what about you in regards to the LA City Council approving this ordination for the ban on homelessness? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's definitely something that we really need to look into. I think when it comes to resources, one of us being a resource towards many individuals in the community, I think it's definitely something that we need to not, strike someone for being homeless. At this point, we need to strike ourselves as resources, or we need to strike our government officials, because why are we, striking those who are, in need when we're the ones who are holding and sitting on a pile of like gold? So I think it's one of those moments where we're definitely have to look at what's going on, especially right now where they're always talking about budgets, town hall meetings. That's where we have to really stay involved with that, with those moments right there, where town hall meetings, especially here, like for myself, I'm in Long Beach, so I would always go to the town hall meetings when it comes to rent increases. It's good to stay informed, and by staying informed, you can at least know who to vote and who to vote out also. Mm-hmm.
I definitely feel like in regards to this ordination, it does surprise me that so many of the council members said yes to this. And it leads me to believe that there's something in the mix that we're just not privy to, or that's not in the media just yet. Because even with this argument that, this is a push to get housing and to, build more housing so that no one is homeless, the reality is the time that it takes to get that, the money that it takes to get that, usually is through taxes. It's usually through, taxpayers who are, being taxed more, or things, inflation that happens when we purchase things that go into these funds for these initiatives. And again, to ban it and make it illegal, and you don't have these beds, you don't have these homes, even if they were tiny homes, you know what I'm saying? Like there's this whole talk about, why don't we build tiny homes? Even if we did have them, we don't have the amount needed to house every single homeless individual. And it's not just
one
about,
more thing.
Yes, what?
Right. Just because you said that you don't know like the big picture, there are a lot of big picture elements at play. LA is hosting the Olympics in the year 2028, and this past year there have been some of the most aggressive like homeless outreach encampment destructions in like a really long time. So I think, it's quite clear that this is an aggressive beautification process for like the next couple of years. I think they're just trying to eliminate, at least publicly, homelessness. So when people do come for the Olympics in 2028, everything seems nice, and it's LA and Hollywood, and so.
I can't share my inner thoughts on that particular piece of information on this platform. But this is my mouth moving. You insert the language that I'm saying. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So hopefully the mayor isn't a complete idiot and does not sign this into being. I always feel like there's a different way. There's a better way outside of making something illegal that is not necessarily the fault of the individual. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't know why people are homeless, and why their journey led them in that way. And to make it illegal, to ban it and make it something like, well, you shouldn't be homeless. Well, hell, a 200 square foot room is $1,400, and I don't have a job. Like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? But moving on to other news, Carlos, I know that you had something that is quite monumentous, actually, for not only Latin culture, but for trans individuals. So why don't you share that with us?
Thank you so much, Daniel, for this moment. So I just had really great news from Argentina. So it has become the first Latin American country to formally be recognizing when it comes to non-binary individuals. This is a huge moment right there. As I was reading, when it comes to Latin countries, this is where a lot of trans individuals are getting murdered. This is where a high crime rate is happening when it comes to our queer folks. So for a Latin American country to do this, it's going to be monumental, not only just for when it comes to discrimination, but just when it comes to overall identity. And especially when it comes to, I always say when it comes to like LatinX culture, we are always very kind of almost religious. We're always very traditional. We're very conserved to our thoughts and traditions. To see this happening, it's just chef's kiss.
Come on, chef's kiss. I think it's amazing. Especially to see it in a Latin aspect, in Latin culture, I think is a huge step forward in the progression for non-binary individuals and just the trans community as a whole. Like, to recognize, there's more than just male and female. Like there is more to identity and gender than just the binary that we, are indoctrinated to know and understand. Nigel, what are your thoughts on it?
I think it's wonderful, and I hope a lot of other countries around the world in the near future take follow, like, or sweet follow. What's the phrase? Whatever that is. Follow
Follow
after.
suit.
Follow
Follow
suit. There we
suit.
go. I was like, I can't make it up.
You're like, I
Yeah, I
know it
think
has
it's
something to do
wonderful.
with clothes and following.
No, but yeah, I mean, there are a lot of cultures, like, for example, a lot of cultures around the world acknowledge, other genders besides our binary. Especially a lot of indigenous cultures that have existed in
Yes.
Latin America for a really long time, and I think it's really great that more people are getting more representation. Obviously, that system of like 3 marks for gender isn't perfect, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
Definitely.
Absolutely. One of the things that I always carry with me, we had a coworker that used to be a part of APLA Health, and they did a live one day, and they were non-binary. And one of the things that they said was, regardless of my presentation, the chances of me being misgendered is almost at 100%. Because regardless of where I go, someone's either going to say, this is male or this is female. Like, no one's ever going to sit here and go, hey, are you non-binary? And so I think with movements like this, it really pushes societies and communities to get to a space and a point where we get more comfortable with asking people how they identify, rather than just assuming who they are and what the construct of their identity is based on what we can see. And so I really, really hope that this is a step in the right direction. It's a small step. It's a small step, but it's still a step in the right direction.
Definitely.
Now, Nigel, you brought up the Olympics
Yes.
earlier, and I hear that you also have a bit of news regarding the Olympics, the current Olympics. Why don't you share that with us?
So basically, this was the queerest Olympics in the entire world history that we've seen so far. So first off, I'd like to congratulate Quinn for being the first openly out trans athlete to win a gold medal.
Yes, gold medal. Come on, bring the gold back.
Yes. So they, along with the Canadian women's soccer team, won the gold medal. They beat Switzerland. Yeah, Switzerland in a shootout, and they secured the gold medal. So really happy for them. And then this year just had a lot of great representation. We also had the first trans woman to ever compete in the Olympics in heavyweight powerlifting or heavyweight lifting, one of the two. She didn't medal, unfortunately. But here's to say there are a lot of other queer folks that were doing great in the Olympics. Tom Daley won the gold medal for diving, synchronized diving, with his partner. And this year, there were 182 openly queer athletes at the Olympics, so which is more than triple the 2016 Olympics. And US, we had the most queer folks at the Olympics with 36 people.
Let me ask you guys this question. So obviously this is great news. We love to hear this. This is representation. This is people out there living their truth and being allowed to also live their passion, hopefully without discrimination. But do you think that when we hear these things that it's done performatively, or do you really think that the Olympics and things like the Olympics are really moving and changing into a space of acceptance?
Well, I think it's amazing from a global perspective to see a queer person, because I mean, there are a lot of countries in the world where being queer isn't okay or it's not safe. So I think just seeing that there are other people out there like you, just from like a perspective of like some kid in some country, like maybe feels alone or doesn't know or has nothing to aspire to or anything like that. I think just from a representation perspective, I think it's wonderful.
Awesome. Carlos, what about you?
Definitely. I think when it comes to seeing representation anywhere, it's always nice. For those folks, I mean, I think it was just like a recent baseball player who came out for NFL, and it's just one of those moments of just like, it could be, I mean, it could just be anybody at this point. And it just, you don't have to be this flamboyant, this like overly masculine, whatever kind of person you are. When it comes to being queer, it could be anybody, and at this point, the Olympians are just showing, yes, we're here, we're queer. And there's probably other Olympians who may have gone under the radar, a really great Olympian that was with us, who just came out queer was Caitlyn Jenner, and that was maybe 7 years ago, and they were an Olympian as well.
I mean, I definitely feel like I said, representation is super, super important. I am just happy to see in my lifetime that I'm seeing queerness be more present and more in the forefront. And also like letting people know like our queerness is not a holdback in regards to like what we do and how we do it. We are musicians, authors, lawyers, doctors, um, gold medalists at the Olympics, Olympian gold medalists. Like we are everywhere, and so it really is great to see us kind of being represented in all aspects of life. But for me personally, just knowing how duplicitous at least America can be, in the back of my head, I always wonder like, is it just someone dangling the carrot? Like we'll give you this, but we won't give you this. We'll give you this visibility, but we won't necessarily give you the rights that you deserve in the country that you belong to. So I really hope that with more representation, with more visibility, does come equity. And I think that's one of the things that we often misconstrue when we talk about rights for queer people and rights for any marginalized group or community is that it's the equity versus equality. And I'm like, I don't necessarily fight for equality. I'm really fighting for the equity portion of it because that's what's needed and that's what I think will push us forward. But I want to thank you guys so much for bringing those topics, for giving your opinions. But we are going to end our What's Poppin' segment for now. Come back next week because I'm sure we'll have more. And we're going to get into our conversation, our main topic for today's show, which is on the rise. Let's party and play. And as I said earlier, I know that we've noticed, at least in the last 5 to 10 years, there has been a major shift in the publicity of substance use, whether it be drugs, whether it be alcohol. Like it has just been so public. I see on people's pages and timelines that they have no problem saying that they just popped an ecstasy pill, that they're on Molly, that they're doing a line of coke, and it just seems like the fun thing to do. So my first question is for you guys: how much more public do you feel people are now with substance use than before? And granted, both of you are a bit younger than I am. So do you feel that there is a difference, or do you feel like it's kind of been the same in your experience of life?
Do you want me? Okay, I can go first. Well, I think just like the war on drugs as a mechanism is something that's kind of cooled off. So, back then, if you smoked weed, you would go to jail. Like if you were a person of color, like the whole reason between the causes of the legalization of marijuana and crack were to arrest Latinx people and Black people. So first and foremost, I just think more wider acceptance, for example, for something like marijuana, like more legalization. People are more open with their experiences utilizing substances. Just from like that perspective, I think there's just a less fear that you will go to prison for substance use, and people are just normalizing certain substance uses a little bit more.
Why do you think that it's becoming more normalized though? Like, do you feel like it's just people's own personal, like, I don't give a damn, or do you think that there is something happening in society or in the community that makes it more acceptable?
I mean, I don't think people are doing drugs more often now than say 30 years ago or whatever. I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's anything like that. I just think it's like kind of like that whole destigmatization thing, or where it's becoming less stigmatized because, there are a lot of countries with very backward models for the war on drugs. If you live in the Philippines and a police officer thinks that you're a drug user, they will shoot and kill you. Like there are death squads that will like remove you in the sake of like purity of the country and all that stuff. So I think it's just pushing forward that people use substances, people have agencies over their own body, and there's nothing wrong with the occasional illicit substance use for certain ones. Some of them I don't condone at all, but there are a few. They're fine.
Carlos, what about you? Have you seen a difference in just the publicity and I want to say that like the romanticization of substance use? Because in my experience, like some of the things that I've seen, it's always connected to like if you're on this, you have a better time. If you're on this, you have a better feeling. You know, if you do this, then you're going to have, you know, it's just heightened 10 times. Like there's this almost intimacy, this romanticized, you know, publicity on substance use. But do you feel like it's more present now than before, or do you think that it's about the same?
I think right now that I feel like right now we're in a very unique time. We are in a pandemic. As things, I remember one of the first things that we all saw around March when it came to the first shutdown was a lot of people were at a certain point were just with so much like empty wine bottles, empty like bottles in general, and like so many cans in the recycling bins. It was just like you would see that in almost every neighborhood and like every like TikTok video and stuff like that of just like, oh my God, I'm drinking so much. That's substance abuse right there. You know, you're drinking alone, you're drinking you're drinking so many bottles of wine or so many glasses of wine. No one's yucking your yum. But when it comes to substance abuse, it's kind of substance abuse when you're doing it in an excessive way. That was the first notice that I saw per the pandemic. And then as things are slowly opening up, now it's come to regular use to like use poppers more often and just start using it on social media. And it's just one of those things where just like I thought that was one of those things you did that behind closed doors or like in your bedroom. Now you're doing it like, you know, this is like become a regular thing on like social media where I'm seeing it on my TikTok, I'm seeing it on my Instagram, I'm seeing it on my Twitter lives, and I'm just like, it is Wednesday. Like, what are you doing? Like, it is Wednesday.
Giving college student.
I mean, no, but the thing is, keep in mind, like, I came from a fraternity background, and the thing is, we were told don't ever post like substances online. Like, if you have a picture of a beer, take it off. That's gonna be like immediately said. So even then, we had rules, but now it's just like pandemic has happened. All rules are off the table. Everybody's just trying to have some fun, and I get that. We're trying to feel something. We're trying to like. You know, you don't need running shoes in order to run, but it really helps out when it comes to like getting to that destination. So just like I think for myself, I'm seeing it more just because people are just kind of just like, you know what? Who cares? I've been inside for like 3 weeks straight. I just need to live. And I'm just like, baby, it's poppers and it's like 2:00. It's not that serious. And happy hour hasn't even started yet. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's Sunday somewhere. What is it? It's happy hour somewhere.
5 o'clock.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
5 o'clock.
Look, and that's a it's funny because just this morning, I was watching Red Table Talk. For those of you who don't know what Red Table Talk is, it is a show that happens on Facebook with Jada Pinkett Smith, her mom Gammy, and her daughter Willow. And they were talking about drinking too much. And so she had brought this liver specialist on the show. And this woman basically said that if you don't have cirrhosis of the liver, that if you are female identified, if you were assigned female at birth, then the amount of alcohol that you should really have per day is 1 drink a day.
Well, what if you just don't drink for a week and then have 7? I'm just kidding.
That's it. She was like, just 1 drink. And for those who were assigned male at birth, then it's 2 drinks a day. Like that should be the max on what you should drink. Just because it can cause health issues, you know, as the years go on. And she was talking about like how people, you know, they free pour and how really you think that you're doing like maybe 2 or 3 shots, but because you pour so heavy, you're really doing like 14 to 18.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about, you know, when I go to Chili's or if I go to El Cholo's and I have me a margarita, I don't know that I can stop. Like, they are so good. And it really put me in a space where like, wait a minute. I'm only supposed to have 2 drinks a day? Like, that's it? Yeah. And so it's one of those things where I think about when I think about substance use, because a lot of people don't consider alcohol as a substance. You know, they really, when people hear substance use, when people hear that sort of thing, they really think, you know, hardcore drugs, you know, like we're, you know, Coke or ecstasy or whatever the case may be. Now, poppers, funny story.
Computer cleaner.
It does.
I have never been one to be on the popper train because I can't stand the smell. Mm-hmm. There's a chemicalized smell that poppers have that And when people are using it in a closed room and you walk in, you can smell it. And it's just like, what the hell is that? Uh, but with something like poppers, like, why do you guys think that is something that people are so, I don't know, on?
I think for myself, it's just like, I think, when you're drunk, your inhibitions go a little bit lower or higher, either one of those. And at this point, you're just kind of just like, I really don't care. I just want to have fun. And then that rush is just like enough. But I think I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, and all I know is that it's supposed to relax you. For me, it gives me a headache. So I would just rather, I don't know about that, What about you, Nigel?
Yeah, I mean, from a recreational perspective, I mean, like, if you're going to use it, I guess, in like a sexual act, like, I understand the use, but like recreationally, if you're just going to be like, I'm going to clean my room, and like, I don't get that, because it just makes your head hurt for like 5 seconds, and then like,
okay,
that's it. So like, I don't understand like recreational use, I guess, outside of like sex.
But I do see it often, and it's happening out there.
Or to clean your VHS, you can use it for that too.
Well, first of all, does anyone still have a VHS? Let's start there. Does anyone still have a VHS? Now, one of the things that I want to ask the both of you, and Carlos, you kind of alluded to this earlier when you said, we're not yucking anybody's yum. Obviously, we deal with clients all the time that may or may not partake in substances, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or whatever the case may be. But one of the things that I do know is that there is a huge stigma behind people who use whatever the substance is, whether they're using poppers, whether they're using meth, whether, they're drinking a whole bunch. There's this stigma about it in conversation where if you do it and I don't do it, you're looked at as bad and wrong and whatever. And I'm looked at as, the good person or the wholesome person. How do you think we can move forward in breaking some of those stigmas where it's not so much you're wrong, you're bad, I'm good, I'm wholesome, but really understand, like, some people use substances literally to get through the day.
Yeah.
They're trying to get through life. And it's easy to say, oh, well, just go get a therapist. But like I said, that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
What are some ways that you guys feel we can kind of break that stigma around substance use where it's like, okay, maybe our goal is not to stop you from using, but maybe it's more so giving you tools and techniques on how to reduce harm or reduce risk, in your life?
I think one of the first things I really want to make sure of whoever I tell this to is, are they okay? Is this a coping mechanism? Is there a reason why you don't even have to answer that to myself, but like, are you okay? Are you eating well? Is your diet okay? Things like that I really want to make sure, because, you could really be good on like, Coke or something like that, and you could be really going the whole entire day, but when was the last time you bathed? When was the last time you actually just took a minute just to cook for yourself? I really want to make sure that they are okay mentally. And then at that point, and if everything seems to be checking out, I'd be like, do you know the dangers that I feel like I would almost be talking to like a sibling or something, where it's just like, hey man, like whatever you're doing, it's gonna affect me too, because I love you. So I'm assuming it's because I'm asking someone, it's out of love, out of care. So I think that I would really want to make sure that their mental health was going to be okay. And second of all, that, you do know the facts. Because smoking a cigarette a day, it could be maybe not so bad. I think it's horrible. But the risk, your risks are X, Y, and Z. So just being real and honest, I think, is going to be number one key of like, you want to do that, you just told me you want to do that, I'm totally cool with that, but you do know the risks, right?
What about you, Nigel? What are some things that you feel we could do to kind of break the stigma around substance use?
I think just educating yourself and then showing support of those that that do use substances, because a lot of times people use substances, if they're not using it recreationally, they use it to cope or whatever. And a lot of the times, the shame that people that around them impose on them, like, can push them to utilize substances more, because it's about creating that like safe space for yourself when it doesn't exist in the real world for a lot of people. So I think just being educated and showing support, showing that you don't look down on them, or showing that you don't see them differently at all because of their substance use. Because, it's a journey for everyone. Substance use can be difficult for some people. Some people aren't always ready to quit when they feel that they should. People can only quit when they want to and when they feel ready to do so. So we should never shame anybody for using.
Yeah, I definitely feel like we need more compassion in regards to whether we have substance users in our family, in our friend circles. Obviously, if you are working here, you hopefully have a whole lot of compassion with your clients. But I think one of the things that, aside from compassion, Nigel, I think you hit it on the head, is the education piece. And I think not only the education piece for people who do use, but even for people who don't. I think that there's a lot of and ill-informed individuals who they hear of a substance and then they kind of run with this narrative that they've kind of pieced together through social media or some movie that they saw, or 'cause let's be honest, if you lived through the 90s and early 2000s and you just so happened to watch a show called Queer as Folk, there is a lot of information that you will take from that show and think, oh, this is what happens and this is what it is. And then when you see someone who might be on that substance or who might be engaging in those types of behaviors, you have a whole misinformed, ill-informed mindset about it. And so I really do think education is really important, again, for people who use and for people who don't use. And then, of course, this is the compassion key. Like, at the end of the day, I'm not here to force anybody to stop doing what it is that they're doing. At best, I'm here to kind of say, like Carlos, check in with you and say, hi, how are you doing? What's going on? Are you ready to make a change in your behavior? Are you willing to make a change in your behavior? And if not, okay, fine. Are you willing and ready to, are you open to kind of adding something into your routine where at least the harm part of it and the risk part of it is reduced? And we're going to talk a little bit more about harm reduction and risk reduction. We're also going to talk about a drug that came across my timeline. I had never heard of it prior to like maybe about a month ago. And it's called, Nigel, help me out. What's it called? Carfentanil. Now, I heard about carfentanil because I was on Instagram and there was a meme that had heroin, fentanyl, and carfentanil all side by side, and it was showing the dosage of what it would take to like basically OD. And so heroin was like, some powder, a little bit of powder. Fentanyl was like literally about the grain of rice, about the size of a grain of rice, and then carfentanil literally was half of that. And we have been here at APLA Health, we've really gone into a lot of trainings regarding fentanyl, and we've been educating ourselves on fentanyl and how, small the dosage of a fentanyl can cause death or cause an overdose. But then I'm looking at carfentanil like, well, this is smaller than that. Where did this come from? So Nigel is going to help us out with some facts about it. We're going to, like I said, talk a little bit more about harm reduction techniques and tools that you can take with you if you are someone that is a substance user. But all of that and more with our gleaming personalities. After this commercial break, we're going to show you how you can get involved in knowing your HIV status at home, in the comfort of your own home, in the comfort of your own bed with Swab and Chill. So we'll be right back after this commercial break.
It's a Friday. Now look.
So this week, I want to talk.
You are here on the link. That's right.
You mamas, greetings. It is her.
We're going to take a trip down Batty Boulevard and bring you.
Is there such a thing as acting too black?
These are your gorgeous earrings that come with the set. So
Are you in need of a quick and easy way to know your HIV status? Swab and Chill is a discreet way to learn your status in the comfort of your own home. The process gives you results in 20 minutes. Swab the upper gums, swab the lower gums, and voila! Simply follow the colorful step-by-step instructions located inside the kit. Or call APLA and we can assist you virtually. In addition, all kits include condoms and lube for that penetrative fun. For our trans clients, we have Swab and Chill Plus, a customizable kit for trans-specific needs. And we haven't forgotten about COVID either. All kits include personal protection gear, like face masks, comfortable yet stylish. A personal touch tool for dealing with those germ-infested handles and ATM keypads. Wet wipes for those little messes that need cleaning up. Also, keep that summer body protected with Swab and Chill sunscreen. And don't forget about our fanny packs for those quick trips to the store. All this can be yours. Simply call Swab and Chill at 323-329-9713 or email us at swabandchill@apla.org. We would love for you to be part of our Swab and Chill family.
Come swab and chill with us!
What's going on? Welcome back. Wonderful commercials. That was our commercial for Pyro Media Network, one of our sponsors here for the link or collaborating for the link, as well as our Swab and Chill. Make sure that if you or someone that you know is in need of an at-home HIV kit, that you please reach out to us. Again, you can reach out to 323-329-9713, or you can email us at swabandchill@apla.org. Why? Because knowing your status is important, and everyone needs to know their status so that you can take your sexual health in the palm of your own very hands and make safer decisions. So, Nigel, I'm going to kick it off to you so that you can introduce this. Well, new to me. I don't know if it's new to anybody else, if anybody else has ever heard of it, if Carlos, if you've ever heard of it, but Nigel, take it away.
Yeah, so basically, I feel like at this point, most people are familiar with what fentanyl is, but in more recent years, there's something called carfentanil, which is another synthetic opioid that's even stronger than fentanyl. And fentanyl itself is already pretty strong, and I'll give you the numbers in a little bit. But basically, carfentanil is a synthetic opioid. It's usually looks like a white powdery substance. It looks like it could be like either cocaine or heroin. And drug dealers on occasion will mix it into substances like heroin to make it stronger or to cut it or however it may be. So carfentanil is 10,000 times more potent than morphine. So morphine is a pain medication often used in hospitals. And then it's 100 more times potent than fentanyl. And fentanyl ranges in potency of 50 to 100 times stronger than heroin. So that's like 1,000 times stronger than heroin. So it's quite concentrated. It even poses enough of a risk for service providers if they're going into an instance in which there's carfentanil present, that they might be at risk because they might touch it and be exposed to it because it's so potent, and it can cause some negative effects for people that are just near it, or if they even touch it, not even utilize it in any illicit way. So basically, the reason carfentanil even exists in the first place was because it was used to tranquilize elephants and rhinoceroses and other large animals. So that's its origin, and that's why it exists, and it's now found its way into our streets. So it's quite powerful.
How scary is it to know that because even when we talk about fentanyl, that, that can be put into laced in the weed. You know what I'm saying? So you out here thinking that you just getting your regular schmegular, indica, sativa, just trying to get your cool mellow on. And here you are with carfentanil in your stuff. That to me is just, it's scary. I'm not gonna say that it would scare me enough to stop doing what I was doing, because that's your business. But I'm just on a level of how the hell does this get from tranquilizing large animals to being a part of just the regular community and just being in the community? How do we even get there? You know what I'm saying? Like, that to me just kind of blows my mind. But Nigel, I also want to kind of highlight, because you, with Project Impact as well as with PartyWise, you guys have an initiative in regards to fentanyl specifically, that is kind of really bursting at the seams and really doing well. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so basically over the last couple of months, we've been preparing a fentanyl distribution system here at the Education Center and all of the APLA health clinics and all the clinics that will be open in the near future. So basically, if you go into these sites, you'll be able to ask for fentanyl test kits. And fentanyl test kits actually work for carfentanil. It'll detect it. The only thing is it doesn't distinguish between the variants of like fentanyl, or so it won't tell you if it's fentanyl or carfentanil. It'll just tell you that fentanyl is present. So just, the whole point of fentanyl test strips are just to make you aware. And then if you choose to continue doing that substance, maybe you could utilize a little bit less this time because something more potent is in there. Or if you choose to throw the substance away or find someone else to get your substances from, because that person might be dealing stuff that has fentanyl in it. So just, that's the prime model of harm reduction. Just we're giving you all the information that we can for you to make an informed decision.
You better come on with this already made elevator speech. You better come through. You better come through. Look, the one thing I love about Nigel is that Nigel will always come prepared. I sit across from Nigel when I'm in the office, and I always see Nigel just in his computer, and it just always seems like he's in deep research, like he is researching the next, I don't know, big medical explosion of life. But he comes prepared, and I love it. I absolutely love it. But I also, I did not know that our fentanyl strips can also test for carfentanil. Mm-hmm. So that's good to know. Can you explain
to it?
Can you explain to us a little bit on how? I mean, I don't think we have one on hand.
No, but we can definitely do that for a next one. I mean, it's on my desk, but I mean, I would have to like.
Well, can you just explain how like the fentanyl test strips work? Like what would one have to do if they had one?
Okay, so whatever substance that you have, you would basically, if it's like a pill or something, you would basically crush off just like a tiny segment, just like maybe like a couple grains of sand of it. Not a lot of the substance, obviously. So you would take it, and if it's not in powder form, powder it up, so crush it a little bit. And then you just want to put it in something, maybe like a cap of a water bottle. And then you pour some water in there. And then you'll put the fentanyl test strip inside the water. You'll just let it sit there for a couple minutes. And then after 5 minutes, it'll give you a reading. So if it's, I might confuse this because I was just looking at it. If it's one strip, I believe there's no fentanyl. And then if 2 strips appear, then there is fentanyl present in the substance.
Usually if there's an addition of something in a test strip, that means it's positive.
Yeah, so it's really easy to use. And if you get them from our clinic, we have little baggies and they come with instructions like printed out separately from the kit and just a bunch of random information about fentanyl that you can use.
Now, one question I do have, because we have talked about, fentanyl being laced into weed, and with the fentanyl testing strip, having it to be crushed into a powder, like how would you do that with weed?
I believe just like if you just like grind up like a certain portion of it as much as you can, I believe it should still work. I'm not 100% sure on the specifics though, but I believe it's just about like kind of reducing it so like diffuses in the water so it can like get sucked up by the test strip. Basically, it should be enough.
All right. Now, this leads me into my next question for both of you. And Carlos, I kind of want to start with you if you have it. What are some harm reduction tools and techniques that we can give to our audience, our viewers, and listeners who are either partaking in substances and or if they know someone partaking in substances? What are some harm reduction, risk reduction techniques and tools that we can provide them for them to either use personally or for them to share with someone that they may know who's using?
I think previously to APLA, I used to work at a sex addiction clinic where it was not just one addiction, it was a lot of addictions. And I'm
Come
not
on, Carlos, you've lived, honey. You worked the gamut. Come on.
The thing is, I don't want to say substance abuse is, parallel to addiction. However, what I'm trying to get at is be mindfulness, be mindful of yourself, be mindful of your journey. One of the things I would really say is, if you're doing it by yourself too often enough, check that out. One of the things that they always say is like, when it comes to diet, I always say this, it's like, are you eating? Are you not eating? Are you okay? What's going on when it comes to that? I think it's, when it comes to substance abuse, whether you think you have it or not, be mindful. How are you doing right now when it comes to your energy? Is your energy okay? Is your energy in sync with the universe? I think when it comes to me, by me saying that, it's just, are you okay? And I think when it comes to substance abuse, you kind of just recognize, I don't think I'm okay, but I'm gonna go and grab that one more thing that I need, that one more hit, that one more, drink or whatever the case may be. So I think for myself, it's just a really awesome tool that we could always, exercise is our minds, and it's try to make sure that we are mindful every single day of how we're feeling. Our feelings are valid, and at that point, it's just, if you ever need, any kind of help, we're here for them.
Nigel, what about you? What are some harm reduction, risk reduction tools that you can give to people either using or people that know someone that's using?
Okay, so I'm going to get a little more specific for you, like actual stuff. So, there are different substances and there are different things that you can use to mitigate some of the after effects of using them. So, for like marijuana, some people have anxiety or panic attacks sometimes. It's usually not like a life or death situation, but, of course, to that person, they might feel that way. So, if you're using marijuana and you see your friend freaking out, sit them down, give them a cookie, tell them it's going to be okay. They don't have to go to the hospital. It'll be fine, stuff like that.
Wait a minute. It was the give them a cookie for me. It was the give them a cookie for me. So we're just going to associate the munchies.
Well, no, I'll give you the science based on this. I can give you science. Okay,
I know that you can. I just wasn't ready for give them a cookie and sit them down to the side. You'll be all right, child. Just go ahead and eat this cookie, and you'll be all.
No, but there's scientific backing for like a lot of people, their stress response, certain functions in your body tend to shut down. So one of those is digestion. So it's a subconscious thing that when you're eating, you don't assume that you're in danger because you're doing something where your guard is lowered. So eating is actually a really good way to like mellow yourself out. So that's why a lot of people like chew gum or something like that, just kind of like that feeling of that they're eating. But yeah, just
that's why I'm fat, because I
not to perpetuate stereotypes, of course, or
to calm myself down. That's why I'm a thickum. I eat to calm myself down. Thank you, Nigel, for giving me that. For giving me that affirmation of life. Continue, please. Okay, so if you see someone that's on weed or whatever, they're having a panic attack, sit them down, try to calm them down, give them something to eat, and
drink some water. Yeah. Okay. So it's not like a big deal. I don't think that it's even possible to intake enough THC to have like a negative bodily effect, like in terms of like you're going to die or anything like that. I don't think it's possible. And then, so, for another substance, for example,
but it will put you to sleep, child.
It will put you to sleep. You have a good ass nap. So, for example, if you're going to utilize something like ecstasy or Molly, do you have your orange juice? Do you have your water? Do you have some gum? Do you have some magnesium that you can take? All things so you can mitigate the after effects, for some people, because a lot of the big problems from using ecstasy or Molly is dehydration. So you want to make sure you drink water. Another thing is utilizing Molly can kind of cause clenching in the jaws. So if you have gum with you, and if you take some magnesium, that'll reduce the effects of like that grinding, so you don't mess up your teeth when you're using or after you're using. So stuff like that. And then, if you're dealing with something like heroin, and you think there's fentanyl present, you can use your fentanyl test strips. And then, if you have a substance in which that there's fentanyl there and you're going to go ahead and use it anyway, you can use something like Narcan. So Narcan is that spray that can stop an overdose if somebody's having a fentanyl overdose. So you just, spray it into both nostrils. And if you want a free Narcan kit, there's this great organization called End Overdose LA, in which they make you do a 15-minute virtual training. And if you live in LA County, they'll actually send you a kit for free. So,
How long is this training?
It's 15 minutes. It's really quick. I did it the other day in my cubicle. I even got a little certificate and everything. I don't have it with me.
Certificate.
Yeah. And then I have a little. Yeah. The day I did the training, I got the kit the next day. So.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So there are just a bunch of different things that you can do. However, noted, if a substance has carfentanil, Narcan might not be effective. They don't really know how effective it is in regards to carfentanil, but it's looking like it's probably not going to be very effective if you're experiencing a carfentanil overdose. So that is the only distinguishing thing. But there are a lot of things. There's a lot of research you can do to mitigate like those after effects of substances, because substances make us feel really good in the moment, but some of them have a little drawback after, and you just want to make sure that you're prepared for that and you're well equipped for it.
Nigel, I appreciate your presence at APLA Health. I really thoroughly do. I just do. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for all of that information. My tip is going to be more so for people who may know someone who is using. One of the things that we always try to adhere to here in prevention is really meeting people where they are. And when we talk about harm reduction, risk reduction, as Nigel just gave us, there are tons of things that a person who is using can do to reduce their harm or to reduce their risk in regards to, overdoses and other dangerous situations. But one of the things that can be prevented is the harm of someone's mind, the harm of someone's physical awareness. And a lot of times when we have people in our lives that are using that we care about, our confrontation of their usage sometimes is the most harmful to that individual. It puts them in a space of panic. It puts them in a space of depression. It puts them in a space where they may want to use more because now they're dealing with these emotions that you just projected at them because you don't know how to process your own feelings. So my advice is, if you know someone that is using and you are concerned about that person, first and foremost, educate yourself on the substance that they're using. Do not approach them in anger. Do not approach them in a shameful or blameful type of scenario. And if you are thinking about a group intervention, we've seen those on television all the time. We've seen, we probably heard stories about how, family members get together or a group of friends get together and they kind of want to, bombard and just kind of like jump the person with an intervention. Well, we're here because we care about you. Take it from someone who has spoken to people who have been in those situations. Those are probably the most harmful things that you can do to a person who is using. Number one, because 9 times out of 10, if you don't have a medical or psychological professional there who is trained and able to navigate those types of conversations, 9 times out of 10, you're going to do it wrong. You're going to say something, you're going to do something, you're going to put that person in a space or a mindset that is just completely unhealthy and completely counterproductive to what it is that you're trying to portray or that you're trying to get across. So if you feel like you want to confront someone that is using, one of the most simplest things that you can ask, and Carlos has said it throughout the show, simply asking them, hey, are you okay? What can I do do you need someone to talk to? Do you need someone to just listen? Do you need someone to just share space with? If you ever need someone to listen to you, if you ever need to vent, please know that I'm here. And then also be aware enough to know when it's time to refer someone to a professional, whether it be a psychological professional, a behavioral specialist, or even someone like Nigel and Roger, who's not here with us. Roger, we hope you're feeling better, who is trained in these scenarios to be able to speak to individuals who are using substances or who may be, a part of that particular community. So just be very aware, be very conscious of how you approach those situations. Like I said, one of the most dangerous things that you can do to a person is put them in a mindset and put them in a space where they feel uncomfortable, they feel attacked, and they feel kind of caught off guard. That is
Shame
not.
almost never works.
Shame. Well, I don't think it's almost. I don't think shame ever works.
Christianity and Catholicism have been trying to shame us for centuries, and it does not work. People still are gonna do what they want to do. It doesn't work.
It really doesn't. Compassion, patience, understanding, and also knowing what your limitations are as the.
Ooh. Yeah. Should have drive that point home. Shame doesn't work. Never shame someone. For them to not want to use a substance anymore, it has to be a conscious decision on their part. You could, of course, present all the negative consequences that somebody might have because they've been using, but if they've gotten to that point, it's probably not enough to just shame them.
Mm-hmm.
Child, I don't know what happened, but the powers that be said, "We don't want to hear you, Daniel. You're getting kicked out of here." But yes, so just be mindful when you are speaking to someone. As we come to the end of the show, I want to thank all of our viewers, all of our supporters who continue to watch the link and the link LatinX. We really, 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 really do appreciate you. Again, I want to shout out the fact that we are in the middle of fundraising for AIDS Walk Los Angeles. So if you are looking to donate to AIDS Walk LA, please visit aplahealth.org so that you can make a donation. You can also create your own teams and your own campaigns to fundraise. As you know, this is one of the largest fundraising efforts in regards to HIV research, because what the goal is to make sure that we get to zero. We want to make sure that at least in my lifetime or in our lifetime, that we see an end to this epidemic of HIV and AIDS. So if you want to make a donation or if you're looking to create a team, you can go to aplahealth.org for more information on that. But before we head out, is there anything that either one of you want to share with the people? Last thoughts, little bits of a motivation or encouragement? Now's the time.
Yeah.
Really? Y'all have to think about it? Y'all have to think about how to be encouraging?
I mean, when it comes to just overall, mindfulness and just in the spirit of being healthy, just always hydrate. It's getting hotter. Hydrate for those friends who may be having a bad trip. Don't panic. Don't panic. Water, and and just more smiles and just keep calm. Smile and wave.
Yeah. Good vibes always. Just keep it chill. You do you. Do whatever you want. Respectfully and safely, and as long as you're not infringing upon nobody else's business.
Yes.
My final thought for you guys is going to be, remember that you are made to be marvelous. You are made to be magnificent. But if you are going to decide to be mean, cruel, and malicious, please do it in a room by yourself and not with anybody else. Make sure that you tune into the link every Tuesday at 4:30. Next week, we will be here with Kai and Ty and Dwayne, and we will be talking about kinks and fetishes, but not our normal kinks and fetishes. We're going to be going into kinks and fetishes that are still taboo, even within the kink and fetish community. So we're going to be talking about that. Dwayne is going to be leading us in that episode, so make sure you tune in at that point, and make sure that you are following APLA Health, Healthy Him, Party Wise, all of our programs on social media. The plug, come on with the plug. And make sure that you are following the APLA Health Prevention Department page here on Facebook and on YouTube so that you can get all of these wonderful shows of the link, the plug, and everything else that we do in a central location. Why? Because we're fabulous. You love us. We know you do. So until next time, I'm Daniel. This is Nigel.
I'm Carlos.
That's Carlos. And we'll see you later on the next episode of The Link. Bye.